Our lives are, a while back I saw a study that they'd done on those that have problems in their life. And the study they did is they'd scan their brain, and they're watching how their brain would function when they'd be under stress and under pressure. And what they noticed is that the people's brains weren't working right. They wouldn't function correctly. And I know that just from the little work I've done with those that have their ADD or Asperger, or, the things of that nature, that obviously their brains aren't just firing on all cylinders. And what I so appreciate, just the stuff that God took me through and helped me in, as far as the emotional realm, which is where we live, is He really makes our life a beautiful song. And that sound that comes from our life is really what makes us inviting. Because we have a world that's tried the religious buffet and don't care to go back to that place. And what they're looking for is they'll have to be startled or challenged that maybe they missed something the first time through, or maybe that was just a bad experience that they had. And to be able to share with people the real Jesus, that relationship you have with Him, because of what He's done in you, because you've been forgiven, you can forgive. Because He's comforted you, you can comfort others. And because He's helped you, you can help others. Because He's loved you first, you can now love others. And it's to be able to share with people and have them see something in you, as one song says, have them on the outside looking in, wishing they were there, wanting what we have. And because, the minute you mention Jesus, the minute you mention anything about Christianity, about church, what do they think? I mean, they see religion. All they think about is that bad experience they had before going through that line. I don't want to go back. And then when you break down the walls and you start to share with them, and that we're sharing with them of the fact that I know what it's like to be where you're at, and it's not this. It's a heart that wants to. I know what you're feeling. And then you start to hear some of their bad experience they've had at that buffet come out. And I just thought I could really care less for this religious stuff, but then they start to turn around and they recognize there's something in you that's different. And I'm so appreciative that we can let our light so shine, because God will light us up. He can make us that beautiful song around those that have not heard a beautiful song. They've heard the religious funeral dirges, and there's nothing in there for them. And all it is, again, all it's doing to them is just adding more to their to-do list. Like, okay, great, now I got one more other day. I got to get up tired and go someplace Sunday morning. I'd rather sleep in, thank you. And instead of all the have-tos, and we get to love on Jesus, and we want to. There's such a heart for it. So just a couple of verses. Psalms 40, verse 3, it says, He's put a new song in my mouth. Praise to our God. Many will see it and fear, New King James says, and will trust in the Lord. Message says, He taught me how to sing the latest God song, a praise song to our God. More and more people are seeing this. They enter the mystery, abandoning themselves to God. NLT, I like this version. It says, He has given me a new song to sing, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see what He has done and be amazed. They will put their trust in the Lord. Is that what we're after? To be so salty that they're going, I need something to drink. Give me that drink. To cause them to want to look at what we have and recognize, man, there's something there. There's peace that I don't have. Things that knock me down and get me stirred up, there's peace there. Isaiah says that we come back to Zion with what? That's the song of what? The redeemed, glorifying our God and singing about how great He is, just because it's the overflow of what's in us. Just a natural thing. Not contrived, not worked up. But this world is a very broken place. They sing a sad song. It's the gloom, despair, and agony on me crowd. Deep, dark depression, excessive misery. Yep. I actually turned that into a praise song. No more gloom, despair, and agony on me. No more deep, dark depression or excessive misery. If it weren't for God's love, I'd have no love at all, right? I probably just broke a copyright there, but this world is just a natural slide down. And even, a few years ago I heard of a study they did where they took cancer cells and they matched them up to musical notes, and it played a negative minor tune. Healthy cells played a happy sound. Plants spoken to and positively, they'll look at the cells of them and they're just lined up. The ones that were spoken to negatively just don't quite grow quite right. Frozen things, they'll freeze liquids. And the ones that heard positive praise music and worship music, for instance, and there's a YouTube video and I haven't found it yet, but I was told about it. So, but then they'll actually analyze how things froze, and I'm very unscientific here, but everything's just lined up. Things that were spoken to negatively and just down, things are just there. The power of our words. Worship is to say back. Worship is not the goosebumps and experience which come, but just that speaking back to God, and our song being that out of the overflow of our heart, from the abundance of our heart, our mouth's just speaking thanksgiving and so grateful for what God's done in our life. And then they'll want to give me an answer for the hope that's in you. You don't have to hit them with a Bible. There's times when you feel the unction to share and to exhort and correct, the ones you can speak into their lives, but not every people want that. They've already said, man, they already see you as that Jesus freak in the first place. But when they realize, well, that Jesus freak has something. He's not a religious freak. There's something about him, and it's about this Jesus he talks about. Hebrews 2:15 says, I'm just going to break right in the middle of the verse for time's sake. It says, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. They cannot break out. They have no clue, but they are sure trying. Ephesians 2:1 says, Ephesians 1, how God made this plan. God doesn't know how to write English either. Ephesians 1 is just one big, huge run-on sentence. Paul just goes on and on and on and on. And 1 through 19 or whatever it is, but just all these things that's going to be real hard for your head to get around if you're trying to look at it in the natural. But then 2 breaks in with how God made the plan in Ephesians 1. Jesus came to fulfill that plan in verse 2. It says in chapter 2, and it says how he found us. He found us what? Dead in our trespasses and our sins. Then chapter 3 is how the Holy Spirit was sent to reveal those things to us that God planned, Jesus executed. Now the Holy Spirit's been sent to reveal. But how did he find us? Found us dead in our trespasses and sins. Dead by the things we knew we were doing wrong. We were dead in the things we had no clue we were doing wrong. And even as a Christian, I know what it's like to be trying to figure it out and just plain not making the connections, not figuring it out. And even Galatians 6:1 says that we can be overtaken in those trespasses, in those blunders, in those areas of my life that I don't know why I'm not getting things figured out. Just plain disconnected, things not working. And we can even be those who are opposing ourselves. Timothy talks about that. Ensnared how? We're open for trouble. So this world, that drumbeat of fear that they've been marching by, and you come along with religion and they don't want to hear that because, again, I'm not going to put up my walls. I'm going to pretend to be okay. I'm going to pretend to be fine when I'm really not. And we're not supposed to be those who are ignorant where Satan can take advantage of us, right? As Genesis 11:4, just as a side note here, this a few weeks ago, or actually a couple months ago now, I was reading that, and it talks about when they built the Tower of Babel, how they really tried to do things in their own strength, and I never noticed this phrase in there. It said that let's build this, lest we be scattered. I never saw that before, that they knew that what the issue was. And what I really saw in the price of pride that we pay when I say, if we're not really talking to Jesus and going to Jesus as Christians, if we're not really involving the voice in our life, his sound in our life, so he can make that beautiful symphony in our lives, that we're really going to, and when I say I'm afraid of being vulnerable, what will be the very thing that will happen? The destruction, the fall. Or we can be like the Acts, the early church, where they were just in one accord, working together, had all things in common. What was the result? God just showed up. They had this awe, this reverence of God, because they were all flowing together. They together made this beautiful symphony. All these songs brought together, all these new songs brought together. 90% of sicknesses plus say are caused by what's going on up here that we have no clue. 90% of what makes our decisions, why we end up having knee-jerk reactions, is caused by what's going up here that we don't know, that's just bubbling up from our unconscious and subconscious. But who's aware of all this? Who can give us that inside information to take away the things that, the areas of our life that are hiding and causing us to be stuck on stupid and doing stupid, right? God has that information for us. We don't have to be emotionally hijacked. I know what that's like. To be emotionally blackmailed, I know what that's like. We live in the emotional realm. I know what it's like to be emotionally incompetent. I don't like being there. And as I shared before, that study that they talked about, that they determined by watching successful relationships, the ones that were successful were the ones that were emotional connections were made. So it's not like, how was your day? It was fine. That wasn't a connection that wasn't made there. When you can actually make those connections, but then you have all this thing going on in the home, and that's really been my thrust, is just with my family, helping to get past some of the things that cause us to be prideful. And when there's pride, there's division. There's a carnal mind. There's division. There's strife. And I didn't want that in my home. I didn't want that in my life. I didn't want it in my home. I didn't want to be as a pastor. I didn't want to see those things going on with the people that I was trying to help. So God's given us emotions. They're just a feedback system. That's all they're supposed to be. All of our beliefs we have come wrapped in a feeling. So if we got some wrong beliefs cooking inside of us, what kind of feeling will they be wrapped in? And who knows why? That doesn't have to be that mystery. The black hole or the dark matter inside of us doesn't have to stay dark, does it? And the stats for this world, where they're at, 9% of people will spend time in a penitentiary. That's a pretty large part of society. Teen Challenge is full of people that are hurting, but they're getting help. 20% of people are addicted to drugs or to alcohol. 21% of ninth graders, sexual partners, ninth graders, not just one, but 4. 21% of ninth graders will have had 4 sexual partners by the time they get through ninth grade. Paul Harvey, Allison heard a few weeks back from Paul Harvey that 60 to 70% of the parents of this generation will bury their kids. 60 to 70%. Because the world is pushing so hard, looking for that ultimate high, looking for that place of freedom, and if it kills me, I'll go there. %60 of marriages are failing, if not more, by this point, right? And to think about it, this is not just a random fact walking down the street and I think I'll marry you. This is the fact, this is someone who's a chosen one, the one you sifted through all the relationships and said, I think we should be together. 60% of those are failing. Mm-hmm. 40% of the 40% of the remainder of those who stay together, 20% of them are only staying together because the kids are money. At least 20%. And I heard this one marriage counselor talking about, he says it gets worse because out of those 20%, only 1 to 2% of those people say their relationship, their marriage is where they thought it would be when they started. So I am trying to paint a bleak picture because it is bad out there. They need to have that answer for the hope that's inside of us. So we can't help unless we've been helped. We can't comfort unless we've been comforted. So it does us well to deal with our junk. A couple of years ago, I came across this article just about, you got marriages failing. What does that do to the kids? Well, that messes them up pretty good, and I'll just read a couple paragraphs. It's called "Young Children Are Especially Trusting of Things They're Told." This just amazed me, what blank slates children are. I'm going to try and break in the middle. A study of 3-year-olds. It was at a university in Virginia. They wanted to look closely at the trust of a 3-year-old. Let's see. Why are they willing to accept somebody else's word, for example, that an eel is a fish when it looks like a snake? That was the question he asked, and I'm just skipping through this. Said, in one experiment, an adult showed children a red and a yellow cup. Then hid a sticker under the red one. So stickers under the red cup. With some children, she claimed incorrectly that the sticker was under the yellow cup. With other children, she placed an arrow on the yellow cup without saying anything. So where's the sticker? Under the cup. But she told some that was under the yellow. But then she put an arrow on some of the kids' yellow cup. The children were given the chance to search under one of the cups and allowed to go. Okay, I got to make sure I broke in here. Yeah, the children were given the chance to search under the cups and allowed to keep the sticker if they found it. This game was repeated 8 times, and then she makes a parenthesis with pairs of differently colored cups. The children who saw the adult put the arrow on the incorrect cup quickly figured out that they shouldn't believe her. But the kids who heard the adults say the sticker was under a particular cup continued to take her word for it that it was. Of those 16 children, 9 never once found the sticker. They did. She said that she does say that. So now you can listen. Even when the adult had already misled them 7 times in a row, on the 8th chance, they still looked under the cup where she said the sticker was. At the end of the study, the children were given the stickers whether they found it or not. So, children have developed a specific bias to believe what they're told. Eight times. The sticker is under the yellow cup. But they reach for what? See, this world is in a bad place because you got messed up homes raising messed up kids. Going to messed up churches, the whole 9 yards. But we have something that is genuine. We have a voice that's always there. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. I appreciate what God's done in my life. I appreciate the fact of the laughter that it's in my home, that wasn't there. I appreciate the fact that we don't have to pretend that we are okay, that we do have problems when people do still act up in our home. We can still have our issues that arise, but we have the tools now on how to deal with it. That's such a difference now. So in other words, we don't have to get freaked out because people are freaked out. Now we know it's just, okay, what do? We need to go to Jesus. We have a plan implemented in our home, how we deal with that as a group, the group dynamic and all that, and it's worked real well for us. But one thing I've noticed, and I'm just going to dig a little deeper to make this problem just a little bit worser, and I do know that's not a word. I want to think about, okay, kids believe what they're told, correct? Okay, so think about the problem we have here is that when we were young children, from a very young age, when we did things right, when we were quiet, this is such a revelation that God gave to me, when we did things right and we behaved, when we were obedient, when we were good, people loved us. But when we were bad, all that love instantly vanished. What does that teach a child? That love is conditional. So in other words, what is that? That's not when love is conditional, you have to buy your love. You have to buy your love with your words and behavior. So kids end up living in two different realms. They live in the realm, or actually more than that even, but as far as I'll be what I need to be in front of mom and dad, so I'll look good, I'll look obedient, I'll look like I'm doing the right thing, but I can live a life outside of that in my little world, where when they're looking at me and they're straightening me out, I'm looking at them, but in my head I'm just screaming at them. Or I could tell them that, okay, I'll obey, and go turn around and in secret do things I shouldn't do. And then they start to live in this world where it's okay to lie as long as you don't get caught. That's the bottom line, right? It's okay to do things as long as no one knows. It's okay to tell you I forgive you even though I hate your stinking guts. Because what world are we living in? We're living in a world where we're buying love that doesn't feel good in the first place. Who needs to live there? But if that's all we know, you know what we're constantly doing? If I know every time that you slip me $1, I'll just keep on telling you I love you all day long. But the bottom line, you know that it's not the real thing, because all you're doing, I'm being who you want me to be, I'm doing what you want me to do, but it's not unconditional love, is it? I like you for doing what you're doing, not for who you are. See why we need God to be able to work with us, because the whole world is in bondage of fear and cannot free itself. They're marching to that beat, and the churches can be just as filled with it as anyone else. But then we go to church and go, hi, brother. We can put on the smile and pretend we're okay. And I've heard kids in our church, that Joel and Jenny in particular, since they work with the youth, have described, well, yeah, they put on quite a face. My parents really put on a face when they come to church. What's that saying to the kid? It's okay to look okay. I'm okay if I look okay. So I can tell you, I love you all day, but if we can feel empty. The only time we can ever feel love the only time we're going to feel okay is when we really feel unconditional love. Oh, how's the test? This is a simple test. God really yanked my chain on. And helped me with my kids, because, when I was young, I never was my reputation was Saturday, clean your room. Why isn't your room clean? The Nazi dad. I made sure never to leave a bruise. I wasn't a yeller so much till Dylan came, or abusive, but Dylan came along, as I said before, he got to me because he reminded me of who? Little Andy. So he'd trigger me all the time. The girls didn't, I grew up with girls in the home. I didn't really grow up with any men around me, but here's the test for if you're really loving unconditional. And this is the standard that God's gift said has been shed abroad in our heart. When my son makes a foolish mistake, when he fails to do what others expected of him, when he gets in others' ways, but I don't get disappointed or irritated. That's the standard, isn't it? It's so simple, I guess, but it was so profound to me that I recognized I was loving with hypocrisy. Says, Jesus said, judge not lest ye be judged, and obviously he wasn't saying never judge, because it's in a chapter where he goes on to call people wolf snakes and other nasty things. But he's saying, how you judge, because the Bible says he who is spiritual judges how many things? All things. So we have a correct view and a correct understanding of the things we're facing, because who's given us the information to see what we need to see? We're supposed to be wise as a serpent, but harmless as the worst thing a dove will ever do if you take one of their eggs is slap you with its wing. That's how harmless it is. And a snake is wise because it's very aware of things going on around it that are beyond what it can see. A snake is not looking for trouble. What is it looking for? A place to be away, hidden in the rocks. And we're supposed to have that wisdom to recognize that we're not looking just blindly going on through life, and raising kids is just automatic. It just happens. We have no problem here, right? Just love will get us through, right? Well, not that type of love. Yeah. Who needs money? So the world can't know this love until we're the ones that demonstrate that love. They will know we are Christians by our love. They settle for the fake. So do Christians. The performance mentality. But what is every time they're just left unsatisfied to compulsively keep on trying to get the next high from the next effort to try and buy your love, buy other people's love, buy other people's approval. And we can get the sugar high of trying to of people approval. That's just as much of a sugar high as anything else. It's just temporary. It's just superficial. But what does that just leave with? Ever deeper frustration as we go through life. Yeah, we need another fix because it just doesn't last that long. That's why the addictions get worse. People get frustrated with the experience. They're desperate. They're hopeless. They try to find happiness. They can't find it because it's all on a flawed foundation. So that's why we have something that's so genuine and so real, and the best way for them to see that it's so good is because you've tasted and seen that the Lord is good, and because Lord's goodness has caused you to change, and because you become that walking billboard for how awesome and how great your God is. You have a song. You walk around diffusing the fragrance of His knowledge everywhere you go, and it's just a smell of life. There's a song of life, this God working inside of you. And the best place to start is at home. If we don't have the real thing, we're going to be left empty. We're going to be afraid. And we're going to try and get things, so we're going to lie. I'm going to pretend to be something that I'm not to win your approval. I'm going to attack because it gives me power and it makes me, shuts you down. I'm going to play the victim at times because I need you to feel sorry for me and make you feel like I need you to help. I need you doing what you're doing for me. That's not unconditional love. Nothing to do with it. I will cling or I'll run. That's all we will get and protect, behaviors that we'll fall into. Not what God would have for us. God has something so much more where we don't have to try and we just let God be God in our life. So from a very small child, we've learned, and this is what God really rang my bell with. We've learned to diminish what's going on. We've learned to hide. We've learned to hide and diminish our mistakes, our flaws, our fears, because when we're exposed, people withdraw their approval. So we pretend to be what we're not. And again, how do you know that you're pretending? Because when people get in your way, when people fail you, when people let you down, is there love there or is there irritation? So what are we teaching the children? I'll fake it till you make it. I'll keep buying love and feeling empty, but keep going back for another high because I don't know anything else, because my whole life I've been in bondage to fear and cannot free myself. So we lie. I am okay. I try to look like something I'm not. That's lying too, isn't it? I try to win people's approval. Matthew 11:29. Matthew 11:29. Matthew 11:29.
Everybody said it at the same time and I didn't hear it. Just a dull mumble.
Just a minute. Matthew 11:29. Russell, you're irritating me.
Before you started, Lori slipped me a little note and just said, please push his buttons. As an illustration. She had a list of...
Yeah. She's inside scoop there, I think. Matthew 11:29. Just some words I want you to pick up on here. This is the one, Jesus, the one time he describes himself. And he says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am what? I am gentle. Parents, we're supposed to bring up our children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Paul talked about caring for his people as a mother who's caring for a tender child. That tenderness. Whenever I lash out at someone, I'm judging them, right? And it's not the fact I'm judging, it's how I'm judging is the issue. It's the fact that when I judge with that hypocrisy because I'm lashing out at you because of my pain inside of me, then I'm not where I need to be. Pride will keep me there. Pride causes division. Pride causes all the strife in the home. And the Bible, Paul talked about how that's a mark of immaturity when you got this envying and strife. And you should be growing, but you're not. Now you're in need of going back to go to the bottle because you've got the immaturity in your life. But Jesus is what? So gentle. I so appreciate how he speaks and how he works in our life, that he never comes across as accusatory. The only time I've ever heard something harsh come from God, it wasn't God. And it was this. It was like he was being a Nazi dad with me. I never realized that just till now, because I was talking to him. All I heard is, what are you doing? And it wasn't like, what are you doing, you scumbag? It was just this. What are you doing? So I felt, okay, I just got hauled into the principal's office, and I don't even know what I'm in trouble for. Let's see, what did I do today? I mean, that's what's going through my head. And I'm going, God, you spoke to me, but man, that kind of makes me feel all riled up. You seem like the principal's got his big ruler in his hand, paddle on the wall, and this isn't going to be pretty. And then he told me, he says, it's none of Satan's business when you do wrong. It was not his blood that was shed for you. It was mine. And if I have anything to work with you on, I will work with you on it. But it's none of his business. He didn't shed his blood for you. He likes to butt his nose in all over the place. Galatians 6:1. I mentioned this verse before, but Jesus is gentle, harmless as a dove. Galatians 6:1, it says, brethren, if any man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, again, a spiritual man judges how many things? All things. You can just see things for what they are. The other day, I actually judged, Jesus, I think it was Jesus, I'm trying to think of the story here. Or Paul, when he talked about a certain group of people like they're all barbarians, I used to look at that as, how can anyone make a stereotype like that? But the other day, I was talking with someone about an issue, and I said, well, this person is just this way. And it wasn't a compliment. It wasn't a swear word, but it wasn't a compliment. It was like they're just plain being, well, I don't remember what it was, bullheaded or wherever it was. But there was just the peace. I was able to see it for what it was. I wasn't cutting them down, but it was just an honest, actual assessment. Because remember, a snake has to be much more aware of what it sees. A snake is wise enough to realize there's other things here than I'm aware of, that I can see with my eyes. And that's the wisdom we're to have. And that wisdom is available to us at all times. So my issue is a wisdom problem. And wisdom has been made unto us. We have the wisdom of the age given to us. But Galatians 6:1 says, he who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of roughness, harshness, and severity. So Nazi pastor too then, huh? No, it says what? Gentleness. Just gentle. God told me, the first revelation I ever got, Pastor Larry speaking, and God's paying no attention to Larry, God's speaking to me. I realize that now what's going on, because I'm just sitting here, just getting this revelation is just coming at him. He's talking, and I'm writing as fast as I can. But the basis of it, the crux of it was, when I speak, you change. That's what God told me. I mean, that's been my whole ministry, my whole life has just been transformed. I went back to a church to give him that revelation and that vision for a church. As I said before, our church wasn't up to that point. Come to RCC, we're the church without a vision. I mean, that's what it felt like. But I was just I'm a melancholy. I was a work in progress. My list hadn't been completed yet, but God worked on me. But God just said, when I speak, you change. Then he took me through all the points of my life where he spoke a word, boom, change. And I realized, I made the connection. I changed because he spoke. I changed because he spoke. I changed because he spoke. I was set free because he spoke. I have peace because he spoke. And then the other two that I think I shared last time, I said, I asked God, I said, Lord, it doesn't feel like I'm in the right place. And you said, you are now. Oh, that simplifies things. What was his point? You abide in me. My word abides in you. You know, and even this, he says some things like this to me. He says, what do you want me to do for you? I'm going, wait a minute, you're God now. The way you pulling that stuff on me. And then he pulls scriptures like this out, like Solomon, those who actually sought the Lord. What did the Lord turn around and do? What would you have me do for you? That relationship, that camaraderie. Then the other time I was talking to him and I said, God, how come it seems like things can be going so good and I'm not talking to you? And how can it seem like I'm just okay? And he said, who said you're okay? Like, oh, it's not okay to not be talking to God all the time. And then I finally, a little while ago, I pushed into that. I said, well, how come then I don't have, why is it, if you're my father, and if I would have had a father, I would have enjoyed that relationship for what it was. How come I just don't enjoy running to your presence and sitting on your lap? And then what he showed me is I realized that because I saw him as Mr. Perfect. You know, let's see, who can I pick on? I'll pretend Dylan's Andy. You know, I'm Jesus. I'm in heaven.
Why did you make Dylan Jesus?
Oh, well, can I do that?
Go ahead, you be Jesus. It's all right. You're fine. Go ahead. Joseph be Jesus. Go ahead. That's why you're here. Go ahead. Come on.
Why? Yeah, I'm Jesus, hanging out in heaven, reading Jerusalem Times. And Gabriel says, Jesus, here comes that Andy. Like, oh, maybe he won't notice me. Do you know what that guy's been doing lately? Do you see what he was thinking yesterday? Vikings, Vikings, Vikings. If you know me, that's not true, but I could care less for football, but.
Hey, don't be putting thoughts in his mind.
So I would see him as though when I approached him, as though, he's God, he knows everything about me, so he knows the 2% of stuff I figured out. But the 98% of the stuff I still haven't figured out and still am pretty rough. It's like he's looking at me, he's like, oh, come in, the only time you talk to me when there's a problem. What is it this time? Okay, and I'm talking to him, working through my issues with him, and he's going, boy, this guy doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. He doesn't have a clue. And I think about Jesus walking with his disciples, and you hear him repeat this phrase. So he's like, why you still got the wax buildup in your ears, boys? Like, why aren't you listening? He's dealing with unregenerated people. After he breathed on them, things changed. But up until that point, he's dealing with unregenerated people. But I recognize it's like, okay, is he just putting up with me? The law was Mr. Perfect, but he was like Mr. Perfect in the sense that I will point out every flaw you got. I will tell you everything that's wrong with you because it was a ministry of condemnation and death. It was meant to point to one thing, is that it couldn't save you, but it could tell you why you needed a savior. That it was the minor actor until the Jesus walked on the stage. But then he showed me, when you come in my presence, I'm love. There is not this, I love you because it's on my job description. I just love you. I'm not thinking about all 98% of the things you haven't figured out yet, about how you are thinking all the things you shouldn't be, and I have sinned against you in thought, word, and deed by what I've done and left undone. I've not loved you with my whole heart, and so on and so forth, page 50-something out of the Lutheran hymnal. God is just pure love. And he showed me, he showed me like me walking out of I had a memory of walking out of my grandma's house. We lived with my grandma and grandpa, walking out, and I dressed myself for the first time that I can remember. Well, I was one button off. You know what I mean by that, right? Yeah. So I walked out, but I dressed myself. And he showed me my grandma's face. My grandma, I understand there are bad parents out there. I do understand that. But my grandma didn't berate me. And I know that the people that are perfectionists will need people around them to be perfect for them to be okay. My grandma wasn't one of those type of people. But God just used this memory for me. He said, you see the look on her face? She was proud of you. Was she upset because, you picked your nose and you... Was she upset because sometime you peed the bed? Was she upset by those things? No, she was just proud of her grandson. And you think about the people in your life, especially if you get kids, you'll understand that. And I understand if you got junk in your life, you're going to look at your kids and you will see all of a sudden you've got frustration, irritation, they're getting in my way, they're being an inconvenience, but use that as the gift that it is and say, God, where is this? I'm about ready to turn into a hypocrite and blast them for my junk. And Jesus was so kind. He is love. He's not like he's holding back, if I could just push this eject button on him right now and get him out of my room. He's not doing that. He really is love. He is so proud of us. He's so in love with us. He's blown my religious circus over and over again. He told me one time for church ministry, he said, thank you for the work you've done. And all the circuit breakers just went, in all my religious thinking. Because why would God tell me thank you? He said, you've done everything I've told you to do, and you're walking in all the light that you have. See how he ministered that to me? Is like, it wasn't you. Yes, you've got everything figured out. No, you're walking in the light you have. Glass half empty, half full. I look at it half empty, half full. It's not. You've got a glass. You got things in it. Be thankful, right? God's not ticked at us. He's not holding back just because he knows everything. Love edifies. Knowledge would do what? Just puffs up. God's not that way. There's no puff up in God. He is pure love. Just a couple more verses. You don't have to turn here, but just as reference, 2 Timothy 2:24 says, a servant of the Lord must not be quarrel, but be gentle to all. And you can find all these gentle scriptures in there. And I never saw it before until I started studying the Word. It says correcting those in opposition. So as a parent, I can start working with my kids and making course corrections, not punishment decisions, but course corrections, correcting, getting them back on, getting them on course, helping them, bringing them up, and then nurturing the admonition of the Lord. That describes gentleness and kindness, not a harshness and severity. And because there is snares out there, they can be, I don't want my kids, we're not supposed to get our kids all into that place of being so. Ephesians talks about that, obey children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is the first commandment with promise that all will go well with you and they'll live long upon the earth. It talks about you don't want your kids' hearts closing down on them because of exasperating them. That's like a marriage. Hardness of heart, divorce, you're going to get there. It's hard to get that heart bad open. It's a challenge at that point if they ever will open up again in that relationship. James 3:17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure and then peaceable and gentle. So God gave me a standard on how to love. He corrected me on how I'm supposed to love. He corrected me that is there gentleness? Is there kindness? Because all I do is when I come off harsh is I'm judging myself, and all I'm doing is teaching them that if I want to be loved, I need to perform. Ephesians 4:15, just a few more verses here. Intimacy. I want intimacy with the Holy Spirit, which has helped me to have intimacy with my family, has had intimacy with my friends and my coworkers. Sharing Jesus has become a real natural thing. I know that I don't have to feel responsible to share with everyone I walk in front of, but I know that there will be promptings in my life. There was a video we showed at church called I Vision, I think it was called, where this guy just has a grumpy day. He gets out of the house, he's upset. People cut him off in traffic. He gets upset because he gets butted in line at Starbucks. And all this sort of stuff, and all of a sudden this guy walks up, hands him glasses, and he puts it on, and all of a sudden he starts seeing tags on people. Just lost my job. Don't know what I'm going to do. Afraid to tell my wife. My kid's sick, hurting. girl in traffic. I'm miserable. I hate my life. Wise as a who? Serpent. To recognize that there's more than what we see with these eyes, that we have the ability to be aware of our surroundings. There are things that can hurt us. Bears will jump on you. Snakes will jump out and hurt you. But there are people out there that need what we have. God, put me in front of the people that I can speak into their life. They don't want religion. They don't want to be preached at. But when they start talking about their problems, you go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're not coming up with haughtiness. It's gentleness, and there's a peace there that they need. Ephesians 4:15 says, but speaking the truth in love, we grow up in some things. Is that what it says? It says all things. We're going to look like Jesus, speaking the truth. That's what I'm practicing in my home. I committed to my son. I had to tell him, I'm sorry, you're the one person in this house I yelled at. For the most part. I didn't really yell at the kids. I wasn't a yeller. I didn't need to yell to straighten people out. I had the Nazi eye. So I didn't get off any less with them. So I taught them things they shouldn't have been taught. I had to say I'm sorry for that. James 5:16 says, this is a message. Make this common practice. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you can live together whole and healed. The prayer of a person living right with God is something powerful to be reckoned with. So we started, I said, I'm sorry. I saw you when you acted up, and I was being a hypocrite. I judged you. I shouldn't have done that. My love should have been unconditional, and it was. I am sorry for that. And we've made the rule that if anyone acts up in the house, we can confront each other on it and say, you need to check on that. Sometimes we still come back with the defense, no, I'm okay. But again, we understand that we're making progress. We're not perfect, but we're making that progress. 1 Peter 1:22, I call this the Larry Scripture. Since you've purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit and sincere love of the brethren, love one another fervently with a pure heart. And the other part about this is it's helped me as a dad because there are times you need to make correction. Disciplining your kid is not conditional love, is it? It is unconditional love when it's done as God would lead. Does every time do you need to pull out the rod to correct your kid every time? No, you listen to God and what needs to happen because there's foolishness in there. It's bound in there. If you hate the kid, you won't discipline them, and that foolishness will never leave. They'll grow up and they'll be adults, but they're still thinking as a child, so they're still acting like a child, so they still want to proverbially, as a grown-up, lay on the floor and throw a tantrum because they didn't get their way and get what they wanted in the store. But now they're grown up and they got a credit card in their pocket and something to play with back at home, so they can cause a lot of damage, can't they? This scripture, Luke 17:3. Take heed to yourselves. If your brother sins against you, rebuke him. And if he repents, forgive him. So we don't have to pretend things are okay when they're not. If my child acts up, if my wife and I have an issue, we can now be honest about it. I'm not attacking. We're letting God help us through those issues, to make us whole, to make us what we're after. A beautiful song that's for real, not trying to get there, not wanting to get there, not faithing my way in there, but is letting God be the one who's worked in me. Out of the appreciation and the peace and joy I have, I'm no longer managing my life. I'm no longer self-saving myself, all those things that go with it. But if we can be open for the feedback in our lives, we can grow. If we can take ownership. In fact, I had to take some ownership with my kids. I'm sorry I did what I did. I shouldn't have done it. And it was wrong. And then I set the standard up there. I let them know, this is what's expected of your father. You have a right to call me on these things. And fathers, again, anger does what to a person? My anger meant to back you down. My anger gives me a feeling of, if I'm feeling inadequate or weak, what does anger do? Make me feel powerful. What is me backing you down? Gives me a sense of authority. And I'm the dad, you will respect me, bless God. If you're bleed to death, you'll still respect me. Is that what God would want? Because it's God's goodness and gentleness. The mark of you have been with Jesus is you will look like him. You will act like him. There'll be gentleness in you. There'll be peace in you. There'll be joy in you. There'll be peace in you. There'll be gentleness in you. There'll be peace in you. There'll be joy in you. There'll be gentleness in you. There'll be peace in you. There'll be gentleness in you. There'll be joy in you. There'll be peace in you. There'll be gentleness in you. And it's not biting the lip gentleness. It's not, I need to walk out of the room, I'm going to pop you one gentleness. But what if I did have that feeling of biting my lip? What would I need to do? God, I want to be wise enough to say, where is this coming from? There's something in me, not in what I'm looking at, it's in me. What's going on? I want to be able to love without hypocrisy. I want to give love unconditional. I want to honor those things around me, those people around me. And then what happens when God beautifies the meek with salvation? You know what the world's after? Pain is their problem, but pleasure is their fix. The things around them that look good, they want. The things that feel good, they want. The things that taste good, they want. Give me, give me, give me. But see, God's blessing doesn't add the sorrow like everything else does. The goodness, His goodness doesn't make us, it makes us rich. And there's no hangover. There's no bad kickback with it. That we can cause them to be, like to be, again, that hook that we can throw that has what they desire on it. But our hook's not going to cause their death. Well, it caused their death of the old things and the bad things and the old ways and the old man. But for us, we can draw them in to know real life. They think they're losing something, but what they're losing, they need to lose, right? And you've got everything it takes. You've got that love in you. No one knows your spirit except what? Your spirit, right? Eyes not seen, ears not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man the things that God's prepared for those who love Him. But He's done what? He's revealed them to us by His Spirit. No one knows anything about your spirit, the things of your spirit, except your what? Your spirit. Your spirit knows everything that you have need of, every longing you have, every desire you have. And no one knows the things of God except the Spirit of God, right? I'm paraphrasing now out of 1 Corinthians 2. But God knows His divine supply that He has for you, right? You have these longings and needs. Your spirit knows why you're having the problems you're having. Every one of them. No one knows the things of a man except the spirit within the man. Your spirit knows exactly every longing, every need, why you have this problem, why you're not working here. The Spirit knows that God has all this divine supply. So we've been given what? The Spirit, that we may know the things that have been freely given to us. There's a link that's been made. Deep calling unto deep. Our spirit hooking up with God's Spirit. The things we know long for, the things we have need. His divine supply has been hooked up and the Spirit's been given that we may know. But the carnal mind will just reject everything that God has. It goes on to say that. The carnal mind is empty. It just will reject. God says, I love you. No. God says, I want you to live life on your terms. You'll go, oh yeah, right. God said this to me a while back. He said, I want you, your life will be smooth sailing. And of course, my thinking is, well, you can't walk on the water when it's windy, that type of thing, But then all of a sudden I'm reading the Bible, I come across a message, I was reading the King James, I look down and all of a sudden it said, you make your life smooth sailing. Like, oh, God. He has things that are so beyond all we could ask or think. Eye has not seen it, ear has not heard it, neither has entered into the things of man. This divine supply that He has given to us, revealed to us by His Spirit. He has given all these things to us. He's given the Spirit now so we can know those things, but it's going to take, the carnal mind will reject. It won't take the goodness of God, it will reject. God will speak awesome things in your life, it will reject it. One of the words for sin, of the couple of them, is the hear and miss. God will speak, but you'll just keep brushing it away. And one of the last things God helped me with recently was that He got me through a doozy of an issue. But one of the things that I realized is that I was working so hard to try and understand what He was trying to tell me. And then I finally got to the conclusion, I don't understand what He just told me, but I've got peace like I can't believe. So in other words, scriptural peace that passes what? I'll walk into it. I'm staring at the light I have that's there, but what'll happen? The light shines brighter and brighter until full day. Peter talks about staring at that light. God, I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. Answer, you are now. It's that simple. He beautifies you. He will make those around you desire what you have. He'll make those around you seek you out. You will grow with favor with God and man. You will see those around you coming to you for your brightness, for your fragrance, for the beautiful song that comes from your mouth. Because you have been someone who's been with Jesus. God, I'm not where I need to be. You are now. And God will take you places and speak to you things. He's done this to me. You know, my wife hurt her back. She was in pain, and I just listened to what God had to say. What else could I do? We could take her to the emergency room and ring up $900 in one visit. And if she needed to go, if God said go, what would I have done? Go. But God told me two things. One is that just ask her about her breathing. So we asked about her breathing, that she was expecting pain, and God told her to relax. And so that took care of some of the other one. Then God said, you know, we have this morphine in our body that's 9, I forget the percent now. 9 times stronger, or maybe the percent. It's hugely stronger than what they can prescribe in the hospital. This morphine, it's in your body, and it's there to help you deal with pain. And I just was led to ask her, what would, you know, if you see that bottle that God's put in your body as a bottle on the nightstand that's available to you, why aren't you taking it? What's preventing you from that? And God helped her with that. Helped her deal with the shooting pain that she was feeling, just shooting pain. We have not because we what? I always go back to if I was walking around in a skin, caveman Andy, with no doctors, no psychologists, no drugstores, what would I do? What would I have? I don't want to be the one that didn't consider God and get in trouble because I didn't consider God first. We hear about that in the Old Testament, right? Could we have gone to the hospital, got the drugs, got the stuff? Oh yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. God will meet us where we're at. But I just want to be smart enough to ask the questions. My grandpa used to get so mad at me when we'd sleep at his house when we first moved there. I got to sleep with Grandpa. My sister got to sleep with Grandma. That was a big deal. But I used to lay in bed like, Grandpa, where did dinosaurs come from? I don't know, Andy, go to sleep. Grandpa, how come the sky turns black at night? I don't know, Andy, go to sleep. Go to sleep, Andy. I used to lay there just asking these questions to him. Then you just go to sleep, Andy. And then you start breathing. And you quit breathing, I go, I'd feel to make sure he's okay. I go back to sleep. But I can ask God questions all night long. The places God will take you. A couple of weeks ago, I woke up and prophesied for 40 minutes. I've never done that before. Just all of a sudden, just whoosh, just started coming out of my mouth. Just prophesy. That was a new experience for me. I'm excited where God has taken us and what He has for us. Path grows brighter, not duller. From faith to faith. From glory to boring, right? Glory to glory. But it's this. Intimacy is built by dialogue, not monologue. Back and forth. Ask all you want. I lay in bed and talk to him. He never says, Andy, that's enough. Go to sleep. I love him. Anything else, Lord? Take advantage. You know what? When you sit in a service, I'll just tell you what I do is I listen to the service. I'm listening to the minister. I'm listening to what he's saying, listening for what the Spirit of God is saying. I'll tend to write those things down as God gives me things. But I'm also listening for things that stir me up. I'm listening for the fact I'm looking at a minister okay, I'll put it in this terms. He's got his act together. And I mean that in a positive way, not sarcastically. So what do? I just write that down. Issue, blah, blah, blah. And I'll go back and I'll talk to God about those things. Because I recognize that's not from my Father. I recognize it's something that's in me that is going to keep me from going deeper into the relationship, confessing my faults to God, confessing my faults as needed to the people around me so that we can have this fellowship with one another, that we can really be we can really have the relationships that are real and genuine that you can pull the mask down. And you know what? This might be the first, this organization, I so appreciate it that I don't have to buy love here. You know what that gives me? That, yeah, you might act out at times, I might act out at times, but we know how we can make that right and not just walk in the next day acting like, oh, there's not a problem here at all, is there? All the fakishness. We can, the blood, what happens when we walk in the light is he in the light. That blood is constantly cleansing us, cleansing our relationships, the things I don't have figured out yet, God's gotten taken care of. Things you haven't figured out, God's got taken care of. We can walk in love with each other, that we can recognize we don't have it all figured out, but we can enjoy each other and walk in love with each other. Really, really walk in love, not like I just slipped you a 5, so please tell me you love me, Don't have to perform, not at all. Amen.
Praise God.